Hello and welcome. Do you have an old jet ski? Well, I do. It's a 2001 Polaris Genesis, quite vintage. It was providing lots of fun on the water every season, until one day engine decided to quit. The oil injection system stopped working only for a few moments and the top end of the engine was gone. And the engine is two-stroke, 1.2 liter 3-cylinder motor. Now what? It's still too nice to throw it out. I'm not gonna do that. I could sell it, but how much is it worth? 22 years old. When it's working, maybe $1,500, and in current condition with broken engine, maybe $300-400. I will take the money, fill up my truck 4 times with gasoline, and then I will have no money and no jet ski. So I'm not gonna do that either. The next option will be fixing it, and those simple 2-stroke engine can be fixed in many ways, by the book or not so much. The by the book repairs will be on the more expensive end of the spectrum, and the not so much ones will be cheaper. So option number 1, finding a new engine or rebuild engine and replace it. That's going to be too expensive for my taste. Option number 2, buying top end, 3-cylinder, 3 pistons, piston rings, gasket. Still expensive. Option number 3, I could bring my cylinders to machine shop, board them over to next oversize, buy oversized pistons, piston rings, gaskets. And then the repairs on cheaper end of the spectrum will be just reuse the old cylinders, hone them, buy new pistons, piston rings, gaskets. And that's probably what I'm gonna do. But there is another way to fix it. It's on the dark side of 2-stroke engine repair. That will be reusing old parts, reusing cylinders, reusing pistons, and I would have to buy only piston rings and gaskets. And that's doable. I have another jet ski which is not even vintage, it's historical. It's a 1994, and 6 years ago it seized up on me. And I used this repair on that ski. It's running since then with no problem. I'm not gonna do it on this one, but I show you how to do it if you're interested. Well, if you have nothing better to do, here it is. I already took the motor apart, removed the top end, all cylinders and pistons, checked the crankshaft. Thankfully it's okay, nothing wrong with that. So the bottom end is fine. And the cylinders look like this. So they are scratched out, but it's not so bad. I think I can get this out by honing them. And the pistons look like this. I'm going to measure the cylinder just out of curiosity how much material would be taken away by honing. And the gauge is set to 0. Let's see what kind of differences I will have after honing. Simple honing device. You can get this in any parts store for around $20. And a drill. WD-40. So the diameter of a cylinder increased about 2/100ths of a millimeter, which is less than 1 town. The scratches are gone. There are a couple of marks here, but if you cannot feel them under your fingernail, you're fine. And now I'm going to have to repeat this with the other cylinders. Before installation, every cylinder must be cleaned. Very good. All the channel inside, especially those ones. I have to make sure there are no debris, abrasive debris from honing device left on the cylinders. Otherwise the engine will be destroyed very fast. I'm going to oil the cylinders a little, otherwise they will start rusting immediately. They came out pretty good, almost like new. And look what just arrived. Nice. Well, we got 3 pistons, piston rings, pins, bearings, snap rings, and a gasket set. The first thing to check will be piston ring and gap. I will put the piston ring in the cylinder, use the piston to square it up, and measure that gap here. Specification says Polaris 1050, there's no 1200, but it's probably going to be the same, between 10 and 22 town. I suspect that my gap will be bigger than that out of specs, but I'm not going to be worried about that. I'm going to be worried only if it's too small, because when the engine heats up and the piston ring expands, when there's no room for that expansion, the piston ring will press hard against the cylinder and destroy all top end. And my gap is 25 town, so 3 towns out. Don't worry about it. This measurement have to be repeated for all cylinders and all piston rings. Now, for those of you who would like to reuse the seized up pistons for your repair, the piston must be intact, cannot be melted, chunks of aluminum cannot be missing. It must be in one piece, otherwise the engine will be unbalanced and not going to run good. What about the scratches, you will ask? What you do is you take just a regular fine, not too coarse file, and you do this. Don't worry how it's going to look like. Just slowly work it, filing the scratches. Of course, if you decide to do that, you have to use new piston rings on that piston, and the braking period will be significantly longer than in case you're using new parts. What I did in my 94 jet ski, I make sure that the original lubrication system, the original oil pump, is pumping oil to the engine. Otherwise it will be destroyed in a second. No matter which system, which repair you use, what you're gonna do, if there's no oil, it will be destroyed. And additionally, for the first fuel tank, I added 1 liter of oil to the fuel for 50 liters of fuel. So now I have pumping oil to the engine, and I have additional oil in the fuel. And I put that jet ski in the water, and I ran that fuel tank dry without exceeding 3000 RPM on the engine. And the next fuel tank, I add only half a liter of oil to 50 liters of fuel. And I ran that dry again, not exceeding 4000 RPM. Next fuel tank, it was only 0.25 liter per 50 liters of fuel. And I wasn't exceeding 5000. And finally I stopped adding oil to fuel. The engine ran fine, there was no surprises, no strange noises. So I start giving full throttle on the lathe for no more than 10 seconds at the time. Run that fuel tank dry, and the next one I start using Sea-Doo normally. Well, the point of that is just to get sharp edges off. There's only one rule. Make sure don't you ever use the sanding paper on your piston to do that, because the small abrasive particles of sanding paper would embed themselves in a soft aluminum piston and will destroy your cylinder. Files only. Don't press too hard. Feel it with your finger. If it's more or less smooth, you're fine. That will work if you can be patient enough with the braking process. And that's fine. Don't overdo it. This is ready to be put back in the service. This way you can spend on this repair less than $100. Just buy piston rings and gasket and you're fine. So if you are planning to throw out your old jet ski because the engine seized up, maybe that repair is for you. Try it, give it a chance, see how it's gonna work. Before I put my engine together, I'm gonna have to completely inspect the engine lubricating system, starting with the oil reservoir. So I'm gonna pull the oil level sensor, just like that. And pump out the oil from the reservoir. The reservoir is empty, the oil is pumped out, and I don't know if you will be able to see that, but there is lots of gunk, some kind of condensation water mixed up with oil thing in the reservoir. Okay, and that's probably a reason for my engine failure. The oil tank was removed. Now let's see what is coming out of it. Ooh, it doesn't look good. Some kind of jelly thing. So it's time for a good cleanup. I'm gonna pour some Varsol in it. Much better. Another thing to check on the oil tank, it's a bleeder valve. When the engine is running, oil level is dropping constantly inside of the tank, and it has to be replaced with the air. And this valve is a simple one-way valve, so the air can enter the tank but nothing can come out, and it's normally closed, so if something happens on water like rollover, the water cannot enter the tank. To check it, just don't be ashamed, blow on it. If the air goes in, it's fine. Oil tank is clean inside and out. It looks like new, almost. It's ready to be put back in a ski. This is oil line supplying oil from the tank to injection pump. It contains a little oil filter. I'm gonna have to replace that. But I don't have Polaris oil filter, and I'm not in a mood to go get one. I do have a Sea-Doo oil filter, which is larger, and I like that. But it's a little bit different. I'm gonna have to make this work somehow. That should do. Those three lines are responsible for supplying oil to the engine. I'm going to take them off and then remove and inspect the pump. Before I do that, I will cover the open engine with a plastic bag. You can do it with a rack or anything you have, and that will prevent any debris to enter the crankcases. Because if that happened without me noticing that it happened, I put the engine together, started, and that's disaster waiting to happen. The oil pump is just that little thing sticking out in front of the engine. Let's see if it works. This device is called variable displacement pump. There is a lever on it that is connected to the throttle. Very important information. There are marks on a housing of the pump and on the lever of the pump. If this bigger mark on the lever, because there's one bigger one and one smaller one, line up with the mark on a housing like this, displacement of the pump is 0. So you have to make sure that that bigger mark on the lever go past the mark on the housing. And there is a smaller mark on the lever. If they line up, that the displacement of the pump is minimal. If you adjust the cable like this, the engine won't get any oil on idle. So I have to make sure it's this mark is on this side of that mark. My pump is working fine. The oil is dripping from the end of the hoses. It will go back on the motor. And I'm gonna install piston rings now. There's a special tool for it, but I don't have it, so I will use just a snap ring tool. There are small locking pins preventing piston rings from turning. And now each piston will get a snap ring on one side only. The snap ring must be installed with the opening facing up or down, never to the side. The easy way to do it is to force it down like this, then turn it, force the ends into the groove, with the screwdriver, and then take a piston pin and square it up. It clicked. That means the snap ring is in a groove. It has to be sitting firmly in a groove. If that snap ring will come out during engine operation, that equals major disaster. Now all three pistons can be fastened to the end of connecting rods. But again, before I do that, I will cover the crankcases very good to prevent anything from falling into them. And the new bearing, lubricated with an oil, will go inside. Then the piston follows. And lubricated piston pin will go in through the bearing. Sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. It doesn't want to go. Oh, here it is. The pin will stop on that snap ring I installed earlier. Now another snap ring on the other side of the piston can be installed. Paper gaskets. I bought all set, but if you ever need a paper gasket, simple paper gasket, and you don't feel like going get one, or it's not available, or you are in the middle of nowhere and you need to repair something, there is an easy way to make it. You just take a piece of cardboard, cover of the magazine is fine, and a thick piece of paper. Place it over the part and just do this. there is your gasket. It fits perfectly every time. And was done under 8 minutes. All pistons are in place. Let's try to slide some cylinders over them. Before I will try to install the cylinders, I have to make sure that the end gap of each piston ring is lined up with the locking pin in a piston. The piston ring is in, and now second one. Don't force it, do it gently. Before I do that, I need to use silicone on this part of the block. That's how was it done originally, I don't know why. One done, two more to go. I don't know what are the torque specs on those nuts, so I'm gonna torque them until I feel good about it. No head gasket on this engine, just simple O-rings. The engine is back together. Will it start? Who knows? I'm gonna back up into the water to provide proper cooling for the engine and try to start it. It's willing. Whoa, something is wrong. I'm going to check the spark plugs.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Looking forward to just hitting the water.
Yeah, I know.
I looked at the app this morning and I went, it's gonna be a good day.
Yes, it is.
Have a good one.
You too. Works like a dream. Something's squeaking. And now it works properly. That's a big one. My engine is running good again. It's going to provide lots of fun on the water for the next few years, so I hope. So, thanks for watching and see you next time.